Hello, welcome to the Alone Show. I'm your host, John Alone. In this episode, not sure if regulars are going to join, but if they do, I'll let you know. But until then, I don't think there's much going to be said. However, for our guest, he's from New York City. He's a psychologist and a cyber psychologist. Never heard that one before. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I give you Michael Nushitelli.
Wow, thank you. Actually, thank you. Good day. And hopefully today we can talk a little bit about my online safety cyber psychology concept called iPredator. And hopefully we can help educate some of the folks that'll be listening.
Oh, yes, absolutely. So, how's life?
Life's going pretty good. It's here in New York City. It's a pretty dreary day. We have a lot of rain coming in, but it's nice to know that that we're moving into the warmer weather, which I enjoy because I love going to Coney Island, the boardwalk. So I'm just looking forward to the warmer weather.
Oh, okay. Nice. Have you been up to much recently?
I'm sorry?
Have you been up to much recently?
No. I'm a little bit. What did you ask?
Have you been up to much recently?
Well, yes. I mean, I do. Again, I'm just glad that we're moving more towards a warmer weather. It's also nice to know that at least here in New York City, we're moving out of the phase of the COVID. Not to say that it doesn't exist. Obviously, it does. Myself, as an essential worker in my day job, I work with the chronically mentally ill. In addition to supervising my other doctors, we still have to wear masks, but by the grace of God, hopefully that'll end in the next couple of months.
Okay, cool. Now, tell me more about what you do.
Okay, well, by day, I am the owner of a group practice. We're called MN Psychological Services, and we provide therapy to the chronically mentally ill, those that suffer from schizophrenia, schizoaffective, bipolar, a little bit of dementia, so forth and so on. But what we're going to be talking about today, which is my dark side of cyberspace concept called iPredator. I wrote that, really originally started to jot that down back in 2009, finalized it in 2010, presented it, updated it in 2019, and here we are, 2022, and it seems that iPredator and all the online vitriol that goes on online seems only to be getting worse.
Oh, okay. And okay, so you told me about the clients you have. Now, in terms of how you do your work, is this in person or do you also do it remotely also?
No, well, there's two things, if I may. So by day, I am a clinical psychologist and the owner of a group practice that deals with the chronically mentally ill. After work on the weekends is when I volunteer helping others who have been cyberbullied, cyberstalked, internet trolled. So essentially my concept, the theory is a dark side of cyberspace concept. And what it presents is it introduces, not that it needs to, but it compiles 8 different types of online assailants. Would you like me to list those real quickly?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So first, the pediatric manifestation of iPredator are cyberbullies. The adult form of cyberbullies are your cyber harassers, your internet trolls, and then the severe of the 3 are your cyber stalkers. Then we have cyber criminals, cyber terrorists, and then the most depraved and perverse of the 8 types of iPredator are your online child predators and your online child pornography consumers and distributors. So those 8 types of online assailants combine to make up the global concept of iPredator.
Okay, interesting. And in terms of your profession, what have been the high and low points of it?
When you say my profession, I love working with the chronically mentally ill, but truly my passion, which has been since I wrote iPredator 10 years ago, is my volunteer work helping those that are being targeted online. Better, it's also called online victimization. As I said, I started volunteering back in 2010. Here we are 12 years later. I'm still doing it. Not to go into the fine details, not that I keep data because all the help I provide is volunteered and confidential, but there's been several hundred over the last decade at least that I've helped those that get targeted online. If you'd like, I could give your audience the 3 quick criteria to know if they or someone that they know is an eye predator.
Okay. Yeah, sure.
Okay. First and foremost, very straightforward, is the use of information communication technology to harm someone. So that's using social media, technology, electronic devices. Number 2 is a self-awareness that you're causing harm to somebody else using technology. And then the third criteria is what I call cyber stealth. And what that is a form of online deception. Either if you're looking to totally hide your identity, being totally anonymous, which I call the veil of anonymity, or you're trying to skew your identity, or you're trying to somewhat adulterate or skew your intentions and why you're hurting somebody online. So if you meet those 3 criteria and you do it repeatedly, targeting another online user, that would make you an eye predator.
Okay. So before you became a psychologist and cyber psychologist, what kind of educational background did you have, and
Okay,
where did you go to?
my doctoral degree is in clinical psychology, which I got back, I finished back in 1995. I did my undergrad at SUNY New Paltz, and then I was accepted in Chicago to Adler University. I don't know if any of your followers know who Alfred Adler was. Awesome guy, God bless him. So once I got my doctorate degree, I got licensed. And so essentially, I have been working in behavioral health care for the last 35 plus years. But I didn't really think about and come up with, as I said, eye predator. It wasn't until 2008, 2009. Originally, after I got my doctorate degree and had been in practice, I became a forensic psychologist, which to this day I still enjoy learning about. And as you know, forensic psychologist is a doctoral level clinician that works in the court system doing assessments in criminal court and family court and civil court. So from there, as anybody can read at my website, which is free to download, in 2006, I wrote a concept called dark psychology. Again, it was my fascination back then with the dark side of human consciousness. But back then, even though there was cyberspace and the internet, it really wasn't as prevalent and so enveloping. So around 2007, 2008, when through doing assessments and working with my patients, I started to realize, if I were a pedophile, if I was a criminal, if I was looking to really hurt someone, well, what a wonderful place cyberspace would be to go. Why? Because if I choose, I can hide my identity, or I may want to make up a complete different identity to who I'm targeting, to where if I'm targeting you, you would essentially not know who I am.
Okay.
And that is when the light bulb went off, and I realized and that's when I wrote eye predator, when I realized it was only going to get worse. And here we are 12 years later, and we're dealing with online child predation, cyber stalking, and all the other categories of eye predator.
Okay, nice. Okay, very interesting. I like that.
Thank you.
Anytime. So, do you like your work as a psychologist, psychologist, and also the volunteer work that you're doing?
Oh, I love everything. I got involved in behavioral health care. Obviously, I wasn't a psychologist for many years. I had to go to school. But when I was, I don't want to say a child, I know this sounds silly, but here in America back in the 70s, I hate to date myself, but my parents used to watch this great show called the Bob Newhart Show. I was a child. And the Bob Newhart Show, he was a psychologist, and it was a sitcom. And he had a wife. Her name was Suzanne Plachette. And to me, again, I must have been in 7th or 8th grade. I thought she was the most beautiful woman I had ever seen. And I thought back then, again, I must have been, oh goodness, 10, 11, or 12. In order for me to meet and get Suzanne Plachette or a woman like her, I would have to become a psychologist. So very early on is when I decided psychology would be something I'd have to become, as silly
Okay.
as that is.
Okay. I mean, it's not silly. It's actually kind of interesting. Yeah, it's actually great that you have an inspiration of becoming a psychologist. It's great.
Yes, and to this day, again, back when I was a forensic psychologist, and even to this day, I'm fascinated learning about, psychopaths. If anybody's interested at my website, under concept, they might find it quite interesting to read about what I call the online psychopath or the ipredopath. That's just one of several sub-concepts of iPredator that's available at the website.
Okay. Okay. That's nice. So, and do you still want to do forensic psychology in any
Well,
way?
I think I'm doing it now, essentially through my volunteer work. The population that I work with, because I work with the chronically mentally ill and their adults, the vast majority of them are not tech savvy, nor do they heavily rely on using information technology. So, for instance, of my 45 patients that I have that I see weekly, three of them, maybe three of them actually have a social media account. Two of them have Facebook. The other one has a Twitter, and the other one has an Instagram. So, because they're adults, anywhere from the 30s, 40s, and older, most of them are not enveloped by, surrounded by information technology. This is not to say that they're not starting to use mobile devices, because they are. So part of what I do, a very little bit, is to introduce very simple concept of online safety.
Hmm. Okay. Cool. So, do you ever travel often?
I'm sorry?
Do you ever travel often?
No, I think you would ask if I travel. I haven't traveled in quite some time. Last time I traveled, I was out to go to the Midwest. I've presented iPredator to a couple of states. They're psychological associations. I've done that. I've also, and ever since the COVID, I presented. Not that I was flown out, so I can't say that I traveled, but I presented to they're called Action Against Stalking. They're a wonderful not-for-profit organization out of Scotland. I presented to their international conference, but because it was COVID, it was done electronically.
Okay. And what do you think is the biggest problem against stalking?
Well, the first thing is we first have to understand that with stalking and cyber stalking, those are, although they're very similar, stalking is offline, cyber stalking is online. So part of one of, as I said, one of the many of the 8 categories of iPredator is cyber stalking. Now, when we want to look at cyber stalking, it really has 3 different definitions for the cyber stalker. Cyber stalking can either be persistently and habitually contacting somebody. That is usually the softest definition, where somebody who's constantly emailing or contacting or using social media, where you as the online user, you kiddingly say, I wish this guy would stop cyber stalking me. Okay, that's not the true definition, but that is used a lot for cyber stalking. Another definition of cyber stalking is online surveillance. So if I'm a cyber criminal or if I am an online child predator, I will spend hours, if not days, monitoring what you do online, because what I'm doing is I'm not only collecting data about you, but I'm also learning to profile who you are for an ultimate cyber attack down the road. So that is the second definition of cyber stalking. The third, which is the most problematic and can become dangerous, is the direct or indirect threats of physical harm against another online user. So if I persistently and habitually contact you and I either make direct or indirect threats of physical harm, or because of how I'm contacting you, begin to experience fear, that is the true definition of cyberstalking.
Hmm. Okay. Interesting. With the people that you see, what what is what is something that's so common in all of your patients that you find quite unusual in your as your work as a psychologist?
Well, I'm sorry. I'm assuming you're asking because I do two things now. By day, I'm a clinical psychologist working with the chronically mentally ill. But after working on the weekends and what we're talking about today is predator. So I'm assuming about when you say my volunteer work helping others and through my research
Yeah.
related to
Mm-hmm.
predator. I would say the biggest thing, and it's also an online safety tip, which for your listeners, it's first and foremost, and I always say it 3 times so that your followers will understand, is personal information, personal information, personal information. The less personal information you share online, the lower probability you have of being targeted. But unfortunately, many online users will share, they'll exchange, and they will discuss personal information about themselves that they fail to realize can be used against them. So that is the one thing in all my volunteer work and all my education doing internet radio, when I present to doctors, when I present to court systems to discuss in terms of advice, is at all costs present, post as little personal information about yourself as possible. Now, there is only 3 ways that information can be manipulated and managed. We can compile information, we can disseminate information, and we can exchange information. So, for anyone who is listening today, it's always being mindful, particularly with social media, whether you have Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and 150 other different social media platforms. It's making sure you share as little personal information about yourself as you can. Now, if you are an internet radio host, such as yourself, if you are a celebrity, if you're a public figure, if you're a politician, if you're a public figure, a doctor, it's unfortunate that it's very difficult to truncate the amount of personal information that you share, but you still can share as little as possible. So that is by far the biggest recommendation I can give. And then the second recommendation that is extraordinarily important is sexual content. So if you're in love with somebody or if you've been married, whatever intimate partnership that you've ever been, whether even if you're into one night stands, online dating, whatever it may be, even if you're in love with somebody and you're engaged to be married, do not, do not share and exchange and disseminate sexually themed content online. Why? Because God forbid if the two of you break up, and it's an adversarial breakup. I don't know if your listeners have heard of sextortion or revenge porn. Revenge porn is after an adversarial breakup, the ex-boyfriend or girlfriend will post without your consent sexually themed content to social media. Send it to your loved ones, send it to your job. I've even helped people where revenge porn, the material was sent to the individuals, the victim's college and job. That's how serious that can be. The other is sextortion. And what sextortion is what I do is I have your sexual content about you. Okay. And what I say is, if you don't pay me a large sum of money, or if you don't provide me more sexually themed content, I will share the content I have. I will send it to your family, to your church, to your loved ones, to your job, and to your school. That is called sextortion, and that is online sexual blackmail. And those are two very, very disturbing processes.
Oh, wow. Oh, my. I never thought of it that way.
Well, this is where we have online child predators, where online child predators, and this is for parents, is that I can create a profile to where your child, your 14-year-old daughter, thinks that I'm a freshman, I'm in ninth grade, and I go to the school only a community or so close to you, and we begin to talk. And as we talk, I do what's called online grooming. Now, mind you, I'm a 50-year-old man, but your daughter thinks I'm a 14-year-old freshman that goes to the school over. And if I'm tech savvy enough, I can create a profile through pictures and through music, and that your daughter will actually think and fall for the 14-year-old kid that she thinks she's talking with. And slowly but surely through grooming, I slowly get your daughter to provide me sexually themed content. And this is what online child predators do.
Okay. Okay. So, as your work as a clinical psychologist, what were the weirdest things that your patients have said to you?
Well, goodness, you got to understand, my friend, I work with schizophrenics. Some of the craziest stuff that I've ever heard, and I don't want to go into the personal details, not that they will hear, but laws of confidentiality and for ethical purposes, I prefer not to talk about what my patients share with me, just out of common decency and respect to them.
Okay, fair enough.
But what I can share with you, going back again, I've helped over the last 12 years hundreds of people who have been targeted online. But I have literally helped folks who have told me that they have fallen in love with somebody that they met online, that they never met face to face offline, and have never even met them via a webcam.
Okay,
But they truly believed that they were in love with this person based on email exchange and talking on the phone.
okay,
Now, for those that hear this may not think that's crazy, but what it does mean, okay, is that, and I can't explain it yet. Hopefully, I live long enough. But there's two concepts that I put forward that I like to talk about and study. One is cyberspace is an extension of human consciousness. Now, clearly, because we're at the beginning of the information age and we're just putting our toes in the water when it comes to artificial intelligence and virtual reality, cyberspace being an extension of human consciousness, we're at the very beginning. But for some reason, when people go online, not all of us, but a percentage of us, we seem to be impacted very differently at a greater magnitude than what occurs offline. So that is cyberspace is an extension of human consciousness. And the last thing, because I know we don't have too much time, what I want to present, it's a subconcept of iPredator, and that is the acronym called ODER. Offline distress dictates online response. And what that means is essentially, however my offline life is going, whether I'm happy, whether I'm sad, whether I'm in conflict with my loved ones, whether I'm financially stressed, whether I'm worried, whether I'm psychiatric, I believe it directly impacts what I do online. Again, we can only compile information, we can disseminate information, and we can exchange information. But I truly believe that through odor, if I am angry, all right, or let's say I'm intoxicated, I am going to interpret and I am going to behave very differently online than I would if I was, stone sober and I was in a, let's say, okay mood. My perceptions are going to be skewed, whether I'm angry, whether I'm manic, whether I'm psychiatric, whether I'm under the influence. That is what offline distress dictates online response means. So what that means from an online safety tip for your listeners It's understanding that when you go online, you want to take a couple of breaths and make sure that you're not too upset or you're not too dissociated or preoccupied with the problems of your life.
Okay, great. And how can people basically limit the amount of personal information they share online?
Well, it's being knowledgeable of that. I mean, most of us, it's through social media. Okay, whatever, whether you have, so if you have Facebook, Instagram, whatever your social media accounts that you have, is that if you believe in what I'm saying, you will go there and you will make sure that you have limited amount of personal information. Okay, I have helped people that, let's say, I'll just use one platform, Facebook, because that continues to still be one of the biggest, is make sure your privacy setting is, let's say, friends only. I have helped people who have had their Facebook settings set to public, and they have formally announced on their Facebook wall in their feed that they're going on vacation, not only where they're going on vacation, but the dates that they're going on vacation. This happened many years ago where they go on vacation. They had announced it on Facebook over the course of a month, the exact dates. They go, they come back, and you guess what? Their entire house had been ransacked and gutted because it was broken into. Why? Because the criminals had watched, learned that they were leaving at a particular date, and that's when they broke in.
Oh my. That
So
is
it's
tragic.
understanding. And again, this goes back to what I was saying before. And most of it, and I've done it too, maybe not to that severe, is human error. It's understanding that when we go online, even if you delete something, it doesn't go away. And if you have your profile set to public, it's understanding that there theoretically there could be thousands, if not tens of thousands of people watching, listening, and collecting data about you.
That's very informative. So, fine. Just one last thing I want to ask. Is there somewhere around the world you haven't been to, but you just like really want to go to on vacation or holiday?
Well, if I had my own druthers, I would like to go to all the countries, and be able to present iPredator and be able to offer ways. Matter of fact, I thought it'd be a great television show, a long form news show where Dr. Nuccinelli, as one of my crazy fans, go to different countries and meet with individuals who've been victimized, but then also to interview the perpetrators, but to go to different countries to learn about what type of cyber attacks, cyber stalking, what types of online victims are there in different parts of the world.
Okay. Oh, great. And that is all we have for this episode. It was great having you here, Michael, discussing about your work as psychology and your volunteer work, everything else. It's been amazing.
Thank you. And just for your listeners, everything at my website at ipredator.org is free, public domain. All my assessments are free to download. You don't even have to give an email to download my work. It's all free. It's all public domain.
Wow. Okay. That's great. And with that being said, until next time, stay tuned for more.